Welcome back to another edition of WeAreSC's Recruiting Roundup with Scott Schrader. I'm Brashier, and we're back on Monday with some more important recruiting news. We'll start it off with a commitment. Three-star offensive tackle Justin Tauanu'u has decommitted from Stanford and then quickly committed to USC. He's from Huntington Beach and the 34th offensive tackle in the cycle. Scott, anything to add for Justin Tauanu'u?
Yeah, he was a guy that I actually thought early this spring was going to end up at USC. It was just kind of where things were leading. He had an official visit set for June, and he took the Stanford official visit prior to the USC visit. And and kind of it wasn't surprising when the commitment happened. It was just kind of surprising on how that visit was able to flip him. But Stanford had a lot of momentum. They had a new staff. They have Biane Talamaivao as their offensive line coach. He's a great recruiter, connects with these guys. But I just kept hearing that USC was still contacting him, still recruiting him. And then it got to the point to where, I was even hit by some Stanford people, some sources at Stanford asking, what do you think? USC going to flip him? So that's when I started to go, all right, let's go check more into this. So what ended up happening did not surprise us, but I think we put a prediction in a few weeks back, 3-4 weeks ago or something like that. But this is a guy who's very, very athletic. He's a guy that the people at Stanford think is a future elite left tackle.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know what his size is right now. He looks like, he's listed at 280. He's at least that.
Yeah, he's a guy 275.
Yeah, and I think he's closer to 290. But he has he's long, right? He's a left tackle, 6'5", 6'6". He's lean still. So this is a guy that is going to leave college probably, 30 pounds heavier than he currently is.
He'll be a monster.
Now. Yeah. So no problem with the weight addition. And usually a lot of times with the rankings, with our services, including ours, there's this NFL algorithm. And if you're not at that weight where the guys are getting drafted at, or even close to it, you end up with your ranking being lower. So just a little explanation to some people wondering how these rankings come about. And a lot of it has to do with measurables. Do guys that are 5'9" and not sure if they're a running back or a receiver, where do we rank this guy? Because there just aren't that many drafted high in the NFL draft. Yeah. So somebody like Ray Leaf, where everybody thought he was a 5-star, why is he a 4-star? Well, that was why. Because not many guys in his category go on to be, first or second round NFL draft picks.
That makes sense. So that's why on 3 he's a 3-star, but to many other recruiting analysts, he's a 4-star.
Yes.
Perfect. Next up, I feel like we're always talking about him, but he always has something it's exciting going on. That's number 1 overall prospect in the 2026 class. 5-star Julian Lewis had an insane Friday night game last week. He had 435 yards, 7 touchdowns off of just 15 passes. And then on the season, that gives him 2,600 yards, 41 touchdowns, and a 67% completion percentage. So insane performance, insane season as a sophomore.
It's really kind of crazy to watch these young guys nowadays. And I've even been asked by some people, like, how are these younger quarterbacks able to make impacts in high school and then go on and make impacts as young freshmen in college? Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the training there is now. These guys are getting coached up by their private quarterback coaches, in 5th grade, even earlier than that sometimes. And I'm not saying that's why he's good, but that's an explanation of why guys are able to perform like they do. He's an exceptional talent. This is a guy, he has his number 1 ranking for a reason. And if you watch him, I even had a conversation with former USC linebacker Chris Claiborne last night about Julian. I mean, even he's paying attention to what this kid's doing. And he's just currently a sophomore. Now, he could reclassify into the class of 2025 for all we know. Yeah. But this is a guy who's going to come along and he's going to be a Caleb Williams type guy. Yeah. That he's projected. We never know how guys are going to end up, but anyway.
Oh yeah.
That's my rant on Julian Lewis. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Next up, 4-star wide receiver Dre'lon Miller. We've talked about him in previous episodes. He decommitted to Texas A&M. He might be in town for the USC-UCLA game. Scott, anything to add for that?
Yeah, his dad Chris told me that they're trying to work out a trip out to USC this weekend for the UCLA game. Weren't sure a day ago whether that was going to happen or not. Maybe it was 2 days ago they weren't sure. So we'll be hitting him back up. We'll try and get confirmation if he's coming or not. Right now there's been predictions put in after I don't know. Did he he decommitted. I never know where these guys decommitted and say they're opening up their recruitment, but it doesn't really matter. LSU got a couple of flip commitments for him,
yeah.
like three of them from our network. But you don't show up in Los Angeles for the UCLA game.
Yeah, if you're not a little interested.
On your own dime, unless there's something going on there. So, it might be just another opportunity for USC to present maybe another NIL opportunity or something like that. Typically the ball's in their court, and that's one area that they've been falling behind a lot of the elite programs right now is with the NIL and the high school kids. So I know they're trying to catch up on that. I know Jen Cohen is trying to help raise funds for the USC NIL program. So the USC is going in the right direction, but to get somebody like Dre'lon Miller is going to require probably USC getting in the game here a little bit better.
Oh, definitely. And then just to recap, he's visited LSU, Colorado, and Ole Miss. So hopefully he can come in town for the USC-UCLA game. And then perfect. Now we'll cover a little Oregon recap. What are your initial thoughts? Yeah.
Well, my initial thought was, I made a bet on the over. I think we all made bets on the over for the Washington game.
Yeah.
Right. So I won $200. I usually bet $10, but I bet $200 on that one because 65.5 for the USC Washington game seemed like easy money. Turns out I wasn't wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I just rolled that money into the USC versus Oregon game. I got 15.5 points. And so I look at like that was easy money too, taking USC and then the 15.5. There's some people who go, well, USC won the bet with the spread. Well, I don't care. I won the bet.
Exactly.
But I don't really, ultimately that helped me drown my sorrows a little bit.
Exactly.
But you watch the game and, I'm on the field and it was a cool lead up to it. The crowd at Oregon is awesome, right?
Oh, yeah.
That atmosphere is great. Those fans, it's the only fan base. Well, Washington's pretty damn good. I always disrespect Washington by not mentioning them in the same category as Washington with the fan base because those two fan bases are by far not even close. The most like an SEC fan base that we have.
Yeah.
Oregon far more so on the nutty side, like how loyal they are.
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle type thing.
Yeah.
Up, for those guys, which is awesome. I love that. I love that about college sports. That's what makes it special. But that the first two touchdowns that they scored, I'm thinking the first touchdown. Yeah. I'm like, okay, this is going to end like all Oregon fans think it is, like 70-14.
Yep.
But they kind of settled in. Oregon kind of hurt itself with a lot of penalties, but USC had some key things happen too that maybe were momentum crushers themselves, like a holding call on Mason Murphy, which I heard a lot of people don't think it was a holding call. But that the referees did not win that football game for Oregon, so I don't even want to go there. I'm just saying, Oregon helped USC a little bit, right? But they settled down. They played far. I mean, I know they gave up a lot of yards. I get that. They gave up 36 points. I'm telling you, that defense looked different.
It did.
I mean, after those first two scores, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I saw there were a lot of key players out. Was it due to injury or?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and so
it is with some of the guys. Yeah, some of them, we're not at liberty to talk about it, but ultimately it doesn't matter why they're out, right? They were out, and even the guys that we thought were going to be out and did play a little bit, were definitely not playing up to the level they need to.
Yeah, But it was a completely new defense, and honestly, to contain Oregon to only 36 points, I feel like was a little win on their side. And but in my opinion, it still felt like Oregon controlled that entire game.
Well, I mean, they did, and that's not where I think it was going to be hard for USC against a team like Oregon physically because USC is still lacking on their lines right now.
Yeah,
they didn't replace the guys they lost last year with the equivalent guys.
Yeah.
So, and the defensive line hasn't had guys at all until they brought Bear Alexander in, and a few other guys are doing all right. But, Eric McKinney put up a stat today on the defensive line and the number of sacks and tackles for losses that the USC had in the first 6 games versus how many they had in the last 5. And it's like a third.
Yeah.
Or no, it's less than that. It's a fraction on the sack side. It's like 20 versus 2.
I'm not seeing nearly as many QB pressures at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was that was an eye-opening stat that he put out there. So, but overall, the one thing about this team, and it's a reason why even the guys that are committed, they had a hard time getting defensive commits in this class because of Alex Grinch. But the reason the guys they do have commitments from are staying solid is because of Lincoln Riley and his program. What's going to be huge going forward is who does USC hire as their defensive coordinator?
Yeah.
Well, the first guy that we had talked about, I came out, I think we talked about this on our last show. I had come out with kind of like the tier one list, and whether they were realistic or not, it's guys to hit up. It was the same thing we did with head coaches, and we put Lincoln Riley on our head coaching list, and we got probably laughed at, by Oklahoma fans on that one. But the guy that I know that they had at least communicated with and met with people that are affiliated with them was Pete Kwiatkowski from Texas.
Oh, wow.
Now, again, is there going to be interest in USC? There's a really good thing going on at Austin. But at the same time, he's a West Coast guy. I believe he's from Santa Barbara. Coached at Washington, coached at Boise State. And I'm not sure there's a defensive coordinator with a better track record that, we're talking going back to 2010, right? He had top 10 defenses at Boise State. He had 3 top 10 defenses, 4 top 15 defenses at Washington.
Wow.
Went to Texas, took over, I think his first year, top one. They were about 100, which you're like, they must have had a lot to clean up in Austin defensively for that to happen. But then they went up to number 30, I think they're about like number 25 right now. Really strong defensive line play. Not sure if what kind of recruiter he is, but his reputation kind of speaks for himself, especially on the West Coast. And you will eliminate high school football coaches in Southern California steering their kids away from USC, at least on the defensive side.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was my first one. The second one, I think you go all in on Jim Leonard, and I think that's what the initial plan was to do, was to just try and get so much money. I think he was already making $3 million at Wisconsin, so you're going to have to start over that, obviously, right? And you're coming to Los Angeles, you're paying a different kind of, it costs a little bit. We're talking about a guy making that kind of money. The cost of living usually shouldn't be the biggest issue, but you do pay, you pay taxes in California you don't pay in other states, also state income tax. So I don't know how you figure that all out. I don't know whether he's even going to be interested in USC. I'm told he really wants to coach in the NFL and would prefer not to coach on the West Coast. So I just don't look at him as a realistic option, and Kwiatkowski might not be either. If we are looking at a realistic option, I think we're looking at Andy Avalos or Zach Arnett. They're 2 interesting, at least, names that have popped up this week. And, we can talk about them more at another date. But, I think ultimately there's a lot of guys that could come into USC and coordinate this defense and help Lincoln Riley win a national championship. But if the plan is to go make a splash, get a big name coach, the 2 guys I think I named right, Andy Avalos and Zach Arnett, might not move the needle. But, at the same time, the recruits, I asked them who they want, like who they would prefer. They're like, we trust Lincoln Riley is the answer. So they must have already been told to say that. So,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not rocket science. We don't need like a magic defensive coordinator. We just need a stable defense that can hold teams to 20, 25 points. And I feel like, Jim Leonard is a great example for that if we want someone to make a big splash. But like you said, I mean, with the factors of being on the West Coast and not being in the NFL, that makes sense. I like Trent Bray from Oregon State. I feel like Oregon State's entire team has been like vastly improved within the last 10 years. And thanks to him in the defensive part, I mean, with DJ Uiagalelei, the offense sometimes inconsistent, but I mean, they had a great performance against Stanford, holding Stanford to just 17 points. So, I feel like Trent Bray is going to be good. He's a stable. He can offer a stability on defense and nothing too flashy, but consistency is what we like.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next Saturday we have the highly anticipated crosstown rivalry between USC and UCLA. Both teams are not having one of their best years, but of course it's always going to be a showdown in the Coliseum. Both teams wearing their home colors, so it's going to be great. Let's see, the line is set for, pretty sure USC is favored. 5.5. Yeah, 5.5 in USC's favor, and then 65.5 over under. I mean, yeah. What do you think?
Well, the game's at the Coliseum, so UCLA doesn't win many at the Coliseum.
Exactly.
Again, we've been talking about offenses that have been, some of the worst in the conference have been lighting it up against USC, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is one time where UCLA's offense is so bad that USC might have a chance on holding them, under 35.
I gotta clip that and save that next week when we let them score 35 plus points.
If they do, then I was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at it. Look, you can never dismiss the chance that USC could give up 40, 45 to anybody.
To anybody.
But this is one of those offenses. God bless Ethan Garbers and taking over as I don't even know if is he third string, fourth string. I mean, I don't even know.
I think he was second.
All right, well, he's the backup.
Yeah.
It's just it is not. I mean, we're talking about they scored how many points against Arizona State? 7 at home.
And then they played, was it Arizona or Colorado? No, it was Arizona they scored 10 against.
But Arizona at least has displayed they have a good defense.
Yeah.
Arizona's not, Arizona State, look, again, we don't want to be like disrespectful with this.
Of course.
With 7 points at home against ASU. I mean, come on. So I'm just looking at the game. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in these games, and it has in the past, but that's the reason why I'm picking USC. I think, again, you're going to see a little bit more improvement defensively. And, there's going to be some issues that UCLA is going to create defensively up front. That's going to be a factor.
Yeah.
But, I really like what Riley was doing with Caleb Williams, kind of like the second half of this last game. And I think you could ultimately see a little bit more of that, where he's going to be going this way, just a little bit more, give him a little bit more time to see down the field and maybe, throw some more deep balls, right? Which was lacking for a few weeks. I mean, there just hardly weren't any deep passes. So, I think this could be a game where actually we end up with the under, though.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So kind of a low scoring affair. Yeah. I feel like I wouldn't be shocked with that. I feel like, but I don't see USC losing this year,
I don't either.
Especially in the Coliseum. Caleb Williams, possible last game. It's senior day. A lot of emotions on the line. I feel like USC just takes it. I say they win by at least 10, hopefully more. But
okay.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of WeAreSC's Recruiting Roundup with Scott Schrader. I'm Julian Brashier, and we'll see you next Monday. Fight on.